of the top multifamily security experts in this country is Mike Silva. He's a certified protection professional out in the Seattle area. He's been in the business for more than 40 years. Well, getting close to 50, huh, Mike?
Yes.
And a great expert in this area. Wonderful website, by the way, www.silvaconsultants.com. We'll put up a little note about that. Terrific website. And we're going to talk to Mike today about video surveillance cameras. He helped produce a wonderful AIA course on this for us. And Mike, tell us, everybody thinks if you've got an apartment complex and you've got video cameras, that's all the security you need. Is that the right way to start?
No, basically video surveillance systems are a useful tool, but they're not a security solution in themselves. And so they need to work in conjunction with all kinds of other things, including, proper design of the building, other types of physical and electronic security systems.
Yeah.
So we developed that they recommend that they be used in conjunction with an overall security plan, but they're definitely not a solution in themselves.
Yeah, and you should get that started right at the beginning of the design process, so that you're not throwing a security system on top of something that you can't change.
That is correct. Yeah, and there are also many just basic design considerations of a building from a security standpoint that, if you catch them early enough, can be corrected. But if you get too far down the road, you get into late design development or construction documents phase. At that point, it's almost impossible to correct them.
Right.
So we recommend that you start considering security from the very beginning.
Right, and bring in a certified security expert. And there are organizations that can help you find, a qualified person and so forth. Yeah,
that's correct. Yeah, and one association that I belong to is called the International Association of Professional Security Consultants, the IAPSC, and it consists solely of non-product affiliated consultants. So I always recommend the IAPSC be used as a starting point in finding a qualified consultant.
Now, Mike, on your website, you've got this wonderful little section called the 3 dirty secrets of video cameras. What are the 3 dirty secrets of video cameras?
Well, yeah, I think, the number one is the deterrent effect of cameras. And people think if they put up cameras, the bad guy's going to see the cameras and be scared away. And that is almost never the case. And I can attest to that in that I'm constantly receiving videos from my clients showing various types of crimes. And every week I analyze these, and we got beautiful video, but the criminals didn't seem to mind that the cameras were there. So there may be a handful of people that are deterred, but most criminals don't think like we do, and they're not deterred by cameras whatsoever.
And a lot of the times, the stuff that you do capture, the data you do capture, cannot be used as evidence. And it really doesn't solve the problems. Those are the kind of the dirty secrets that
right.
These are not a be-all, end-all solution to your security system. Okay,
that is correct. Yeah, because the quality of the image is often not sufficient to identify the criminal suspects or vehicles. And also, typically, most law enforcement agencies, particularly in major urban areas, they don't have time to investigate videos, even if they do get a useful image. So again, the systems are a useful tool, but they're not a magic bullet.
Right. Well, let's talk about some practical things that you would recommend in terms of installing these systems, designing them. You mentioned something called choke points. What's a choke point, Mike?
Well, if you've got a property, you've got hundreds or even, thousands of areas that you'd like to cover, but it's really not cost effective to do that. I mean, otherwise you'd end up spending, several $1 million on a camera system. So what we suggest you do is focus on choke points. What these are is places where the criminal suspect is likely to pass through as they are committing their crime. So building entry points, elevator lobbies, parking garage entrances, major building lobbies, possibly amenity areas, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But basically places where a criminal would be likely to pass through. So rather than try to cover every square foot of a parking garage, for example, we would cover the exterior parking garage entry points and then the elevator lobbies and stairway entrances at the parking level. So with a handful of cameras, you could basically provide some coverage of the parking garage without trying to cover every square foot.
All right, Mike, let's take a typical 200 unit let's say a 200 unit, 150, 200 unit, mid to low rise complex, apartment complex, what would a cost be in terms of getting security grade cameras in? That's what you recommend, is security grade cameras, right? Give our audience some idea of a ballpark at least,
Okay,
per
well,
camera. Yeah.
sure. Yeah, on a per camera cost in multifamily, we typically estimate, somewhere between $2,000 and $3,000 per camera, and that includes everything. I mean, the camera itself is only a small part of that. There's wiring, there's network infrastructure, there's recording infrastructure, there's the cabling and conduit and all that sort of thing. So if you take all those costs and sort of average them out over a camera, you're typically looking at, between $2,000 and $3,000 per camera.
Okay.
On average.
Good. All right. Okay. Now, the other thing that I've learned from you and your website and talking to you for our article is that lighting is very important part of the cameras. I mean, we kind of know that intuitively from taking pictures ourselves, right, and videos ourselves. But so there's factors. I understand there's three main factors: intensity of the lighting, uniformity of the lighting, and the color rendering. Could you talk about some of those points, particularly for parking areas and other areas?
Okay.
Other public areas? Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we recommend lighting, really for two reasons. One is just having good lighting, we feel creates a safer environment and makes the building, or facility safer in general. So regardless of whether you have cameras or not, we recommend you have, at least a minimum of 1 foot candle of lighting, and preferably 2 to 4 foot candles in most areas.
Okay.
But with regards to cameras, basically cameras, the better the lighting, the better the camera is going to operate. But even more importantly is the uniformity of lighting. Most modern cameras will actually work fairly well in low light level conditions, but the light needs to be relatively uniform. So if you have lighting that's 50-foot candles in one part of the image and half a foot candle in the other part of the image, that's not going to work well. So the lighting intensity ideally would be uniformly distributed across the scene, so you don't have dark areas and hot spots.
What's a good ratio on uniformity, Mike?
We recommend typically 3 to 1 or 4 to 1,
Okay.
in that area.
Mm-hmm.
But in most, particularly outdoor parking lot, it's not uncommon to see it as high as 100 to 1.
Oh my goodness.
Because they have too few light fixtures spaced too far apart, and so it's very bright right under the fixture. But then you get midway between the fixtures, and it's very bad. So,
and of course, yeah, we're using LEDs this and now, aren't we?
Yes, LEDs are the preferred solution today. The cost on them is coming down to where we would. It's hard to imagine a situation where we would recommend anything other than LED for outdoor lighting.
Well, Mike, you've given us a good run through on key points in the article we did on video surveillance cameras in multifamily housing. Our audience members can access that at www.bdcuniversity.com. And again, I recommend highly going to Mike's excellent, really the best security website I've come across, Silva, S-I-L-V-A, consultants.com. Mike Silva, thanks so much for your time today. It's always a pleasure talking with you.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you.